So we just actually had our outcomes report come out, and we looked at about 5,000 patients that we've been, given the opportunity to get to work with. And what we found were our return to higher level of care was about 12%. And I believe the national average is around 40 or 50.
I was going to say, what was your hypothesis going into it?
Honestly, we were really confident. I mean, we kind of saw the proof, in what we were doing.
Exactly.
And
You had to step out of that box.
Exactly, right? Back to family and back to social systems and back to, trying to find a job and navigating the world as a newly sober kind of, as I say, raw nerve ending. And so having structure in place that was kind of continuous was just immensely helpful. The genesis of it is that, so both myself and my co-founder, Matt, we are people in long-term recovery. And I'll speak for me, when I was stepping down levels of care, or really when I left care and transitioned to independent living, there was nothing really in the way for me.
Welcome back to Mastermind. I'm your host, Mark Scrivner. Our team took the show on the road to NAATP National 2026 to catch up with the leaders, innovators, and voices driving the behavioral health industry forward. We had so many incredible face-to-face sessions on the floor this year, and today we are bringing you one of those dynamic conversations. Let's take a listen. Welcome back to Mastermind. I'm your host, Mark Scrivner, and joined again by my co-host, Jeff Skillen. Jeff, man, welcome to the show.
Mark, it is so good to be here.
Yeah, well, it's been a fun day in Florida at NAATP National 2026. We've interviewed some amazing people, and we got another great guest on the show today. How excited are you, Jeff?
I'm very excited. I've been wanting to talk to AJ, the whole time we've been here.
Yeah, well, AJ Diaz is the co-founder of You Are Accountable, and through the show we're going to say accountable, but hey, man, it's great to have you on, AJ. Thanks for being a part of it, and thanks for coming to the conference.
Yeah, thanks so much for having me on. It was such a joy to get the email and get invited, and so it's just a pleasure to be here.
Yeah.
Well, the URL right out of the gate with You Are Accountable, you immediately got my attention. I was like, okay, I have to go see what it is. And so I'd love to give you my impression of what it is, but I'd rather you tell us, first of all, what was the motivation for that website address, and then tell us a little bit about where it leads us.
So funny enough, actually, we wanted to have it be accountable.com, but that URL was already taken.
Imagine that.
So we went to You Are Accountable, and it worked out. But the genesis of it is that, so both myself and my co-founder, Matt, we are people in long-term recovery. And I'll speak for me, when I was stepping down levels of care, or really when I left care and transitioned to independent living, there was nothing really in the way for me. I was given a sheet of paper that said, hey, here's what to watch out for. And it felt insufficient then, still kind of feels insufficient now. And my family was terrified, and if I'm honest, I was a little terrified. And so the only thing I could think of to give myself continuing care was I had been drug tested for the last 13 months, and that's what I was used to, and it was a piece of accountability. And that's what I did. And I did that for 3 years, and it served two really distinct purposes. One was that I knew I had to ring that bell every week. So it was, okay, what am I doing during the day, during the week, right? So that when I do ring that proverbial bell, it's okay.
Right.
And then the next thing, is, when we are treating addiction, we need to treat it as a family. And my family, for me, they were anxious and nervous, and they kind of had the idea that never again, we're never going to miss a sign. And so it didn't really let our family wasn't really healing yet. And so having this piece taken out, and there was accountability that they didn't need to be the arbiter of, it kind of just let us be a family. And so their anxiety was lowered, in turn my anxiety was lowered. So that was a huge piece on kind of the personal side of the genesis. And then clinically, working in IOPs, I always found myself sitting there being, I hope my patients are kind of in a skills in, skills out way, working on what we're doing here in IOP outside of the therapeutic structure. But I had no idea. I had patients in group 12 to 13 hours a week, and I was so curious that I actually looked it up. And here's a party trick for everyone: there are 168 hours in a week. And so I said, wow, like that's a precipitous drop off from time in the therapeutic structure to time outside in the living environment. And I wish I had some kind of window into what was happening. And, that plus both mine and Matt's personal experience, Accountable was born.
Well, first of all, I didn't know I was going to have to get out my calculator here for the party trick, but I'm following you because, we know in this industry that the times that are most fragile are points of transition.
Sure.
Right? And so what you describe, I think people who listen to this podcast are going to know intimately that, here you are, you've just come through a treatment program and you're feeling some independence and you're wanting some validation for the work that you've been doing. Meanwhile, your family is still walking on eggshells going, okay, what's going to happen, and nervous that something is going to, pull a Jenga block out of the tower, right? And so that inspiration really kind of got you to where this is, to where you are. Is that fair?
Yeah, very much so. I think that, to your point, right, transitions are huge. And the 4 walls of treatment, they saved my life. And also, I still had to go back to the work.
Right, exactly.
And
you had to step out of that box.
Exactly, right? Back to family and back to social systems and back to, trying to find a job and navigating the world as a newly sober kind of, as I say, raw nerve ending. And so having structure in place that was kind of continuous was just immensely helpful.
Well, that peer support and then that coaching aspect, that's been in a variety of forms in the industry for some time, but your approach is pretty unique, right? It's like, you've decided this needs to be an app and this needs to be delivered from in a particular technological way. What was the inspiration for that?
Yeah, so, for us, right, I know, again, both Matt and I had this experience, and Matt says it very eloquently in that, it was one thing for a clinician to give him a piece of, advice or a suggestion, and there was some shame in it. And it was another thing for someone who was shoulder to shoulder with him to kind of give him the same one and kind of drop the ego a little bit. And so for us, right, our view is that peers have been used for so long, right? But generally in most kind of settings, call it a multidisciplinary team setting, they kind of sit in the corner and they're Joe who can take you to a meeting or, watch you do a UA.
Right.
They can be so much more than that. Right. They have ability for, interventions like motivational interviewing and can really meet someone where they are and kind of work on, skill building with someone. And so for us, we really wanted to kind of professionalize that and show the efficacy of peer work. For us, it's technology is not a replacement of, but an enhancement for the work that we do.
Because there's still a human on the other side.
Very much so, always.
Yeah.
And we really believe in that. And so, technology is able to drive efficiency. It, cuts down time on charting and documentation. It allows, our clients and our members to test asynchronously, right? So for me, when I was getting tested, I was sprinting all over New York City to a Quest lab or a LabCorp who keep, not the best hours.
Right.
And so someone can do it from the comfort of their own home and have someone who is their cheerleader, their advocate, their boundary setter, someone who's going to walk through this process as they're transitioning.
Yeah. AJ, what, since you've launched Accountable, what kind of metrics are you starting to see? What kind of success rates are you seeing by using the app?
Yeah, so we just actually had our outcomes report come out, and we looked at about 5,000 patients that we've been, given the opportunity to get to work with. And what we found were our return to higher level of care was about 12%. And I believe the national average is around 40 or 50.
I was going to say, what was your hypothesis going into it?
Honestly, we were really confident. We kind of saw the proof, in what we were doing. When Matt and I originally set out to start this, right, we thought, hey, well, this will be like a once a month check-in and it'll be nice and it'll be helpful. And as we kind of really started to integrate ourselves into the field, right, we were getting calls of, hey, can you meet with people more? Can you do this? And can you do this? And it kind of took on a life and shape of its own and kind of, meeting the market demand, so to speak. And, for me clinically, right, what was really important was, hey, we really get to kind of surface this really rich data to clinicians because, we're so specific in our scope, right? We're not a replacement for treatment. We're an adjunct to that ongoing care. And so how can we surface level things outside of that therapeutic structure that can help to either A, form an intervention or help to reiterate an intervention that's been going on for someone?
Well, I mean, first of all, that 5,000 number is very impressive.
Oh, thank
Yeah.
you. Yeah.
That number is very impressive, and then the 12%, frankly,
Yeah.
is very impressive. When Mark asked you that question, I expected that to be 20, 25%.
Yeah.
And then, to come in at half of that, it's like, I'm sure you would love to say that the tool is responsible for that, but I wonder if there's a little bit of social engineering that's kind of involved in this. It's like it's not just the tool. It's like you talked about. Now I've got some accountability. Now I've got something where it's like I need to be accountable to myself, to those who love me, to those who care for me.
Yep.
And it's like, and now it's just in the palm of my hand. Is that fair? Or
It is, and it's not just in the palm of their hand, but right, the sessions, are structured, right? So like, hey, I know I'm going to meet with my coach Tim. I'm going to meet with him every Monday.
and
right?
what
it's
happens
like
what happens if you don't?
Right, then that person's calling you and saying, hey, where are you? Are
Right.
you okay?
Right.
Right, and then there's a testing component on top of that, right? And we're substance agnostic, so it doesn't matter whether it's AUD or kind of, polysubstance, right? We can test for everything, and I think there's a real important piece to that, right? It's not punitive. It's something that holds you accountable, right, for lack of a better term. And the other metrics we kind of found were, reduction in like co-occurring, right? So like, anxiety, depression, cravings went down. And then we actually have our own proprietary recovery capital assessment. And we saw that increase over time, right? Someone's ability to kind of be in their own environment and adopt new skills and create more strengths and turn strengths stronger or weaknesses into strengths, et cetera. So that's been very cool to see.
What sort of regulation is involved in something like this, or is it lightly regulated and kind of in the Wild West?
In kind of the peer space?
Yes.
It's a little Wild West. I think that anyone can kind of go and Google and become a recovery coach, which I think is a good thing in that there's easy entry into the field, which is important. We need more people who are helping people. But there's also, it's to your point of regulation, right? You don't know which one is which, right? For us, what's really important is, every single person, number one, all of our employees are, not only are they sober, but they're all full-time employees, right? This way they are mission focused and they're there to be with someone through their entirety in our program. They come in with, a state certification of whatever state they're in, right? But then we also get a national certification, which is done through NAATP. It's the NCPRSS. And that has a little bit more rigor to it, at least kind of in our research what we found. So there's direct contact hours that are needed. There's ongoing continuing education that are needed. And we've upped that a little bit from what we require because we want to have real efficacy in what we do and we want to have ethics in what we do.
AJ, is the consistency of the platform, is it come around the weekly meetings? Like, where do you guys see the most usage on the platform like the consistency coming from?
I would say like kind of in all aspects. We have a cool piece of it, contingency management. I don't know if you're familiar with it. Right, we kind of call it CM Lite, if you will. So we have a reward system. So as someone fills out a craving survey or a GAD-7 or a PHQ-9 or goes to a session or does a test, right, they accrue what we call a count of points, which is very fun. And at a certain amount of points, they get rewards. So it's a fidget spinner or a notebook, and as you get more points, you get better rewards. And
I'm going to sign up for the app just for that.
Right? And so, I think what's really cool is it's this tangible marker of, hey, what I'm doing, I'm moving along here. I'm moving along a continuum. And the amount of calls that we get of like, hey, I have 500 points. Like, I really would like my water bottle right now. And nothing makes me happier than getting to send those things out. So I think in terms of like your question of engagement, we kind of see it across. But I think the biggest one is that with their primary coach, right? That becomes this person that knows them deeply and intimately and really gets to kind of walk alongside them in their journey.
What when people like bug out or they don't use they're not engaged, like is there a certain point you see that, and then like what is the cause of, like, as you survey people, of why they stopped using it?
I think people get treatment fatigue in some fashion, which is real, and I'm someone who experienced that too. And I think the other piece is, right, everyone's at a different stage in motivation, right? And so, like, you can't force anyone to do anything, and really try to like live in the axiom of meeting that individual where they are and try to like taper or titrate kind of their involvement or engagement to at least keep them engaged in something. But for us, at the end of the day, we'll always leave the door open for anyone. Right, and even for members who have discharged our program, whether it be voluntarily or a completion, what have you, our meetings are open to them for life. We always want them to have access to a safe place to be, but in terms of like where that comes from, it depends, right? It's person centric, and it'd be hard to kind of tie it to one thing.
So with the various programs that you're working with, at what stage do you introduce you are accountable to them? I would think that it wouldn't be great if it'd be like, okay, right upon discharge, hey guys, download this and good luck. I mean, what have you found to be the best sort of on-ramp?
That's actually the best one.
For real?
Yeah.
Okay.
So like,
I thought maybe there would be some sort of, warm handoff or something.
So, and there kind of is with that, right? So like what we found, and Matt says this really well, like he went to Cirque Lodge, and as he always says, right, I want to say discharged Cirque on a Thursday, got dropped at the airport and had to, again, be the one to get himself to IOP that Monday.
Right.
And he like found himself in an airport where,
I've got 3 days
right,
alone with my thoughts.
But even just at an airport where like it's kind of a lawless place, and like, having a drink at 9 a.m. is not generally frowned upon,
Right.
at least by the airport, people in the airport. And he was like, I don't really know what to do here. And, for him, he chugged Red Bull, which probably wasn't the best thing, but at least it got him through. So what we found is, like, to your point of transitions, right, a little callback there, that 4 days is dangerous.
Absolutely.
4 hours can be dangerous.
Right.
So like we've actually positioned ourselves, last year we had about 500 different treatment centers refer to us. And I think that goes to just the relationships we're able to build and how wonderful this community is. And we will situate people, 2 hours before discharge. The nice thing is that like someone can go to our website, sign up, we will get them in for an intake right away, and we'll actually place like breathalyzers, for instance, at the treatment center.
Okay.
So someone can leave with that.
Okay, got it.
And at least there's some, measure of structure or accountability, right, as they're leaving, and they have to make it to IOP 4 days later.
Let me just stay on this for just a moment,
Yeah.
because it's like, I totally get how that works, and people can be relieved with that. I just wonder, it's like, let's say you're getting like a week before you're going to graduate, or there's going to be a transition. People are their anxiety is going to ramp up around that, right?
Sure.
And truly, I'm wondering, is it better to wait until they're physically, discharged, or is it better to say, hey, we have a plan. Let's tell you, let's walk through what that looks like, because this transition might be a little scary for you, and it's like, we got you, we got your back. Am I missing that, or no?
No, I would go with the latter. I think you're right. Like, to me, it's the latter, right? They always say, right, you want to like plan for discharge as soon as someone enters treatment,
right?
Because like, hey, this is an eventuality, or this is an inevitable thing that's going to happen, right? You are going to leave here at 28 days or 30 days or 60 days, what have you, right? We need to plan for that time. And look, I know for me, when I was leaving treatment, if I didn't have a plan in place, I kind of got to the end of my time and I was like, I don't want to leave here. I'm freaking out a little bit, right?
Yeah.
If you guys can kind of just keep me here, that'd be great. And so it was nice to know, okay, this is what I'm doing when I walk off of this campus, because as we were kind of saying before, like, life happens. And so like I leave that, really safe four walls and back to the grind.
Right.
Back to expectations and people around me, and no one is rolling out a red carpet for me. The world has continued to spin, and so like, I think as humans, structure is very healthy. The nervous system responds well to structure. We don't really respond well to chaos, depending on who you are.
Depends on who you are.
Yeah. So like having that structure can be very calming for that nervous system, for anyone at least. Not to speak too generally, and I think we get to provide that.
Well, I just think from kind of a resilience lens, or even kind of a motivational interviewing lens, is like flipping it on its head to say, we know this might be stressful for you, but you know what? You've done such a great job in the program. You're feeling anxious about going. This gives you an opportunity to really show the work that you're doing.
Yeah.
And lean heavily into, I'm doing great work. I want to show you that I'm doing great work. Right? And it's like, and then family anxiety goes down. And then, hey, you got a fidget spinner on the way. And then,
who doesn't want that?
Who doesn't want that, right?
Yeah. Well, AJ, is there, like, I'm sure that you're I'm sure the platform is as good as the treatment centers. Are there things you see with programs that like really make it successful, or are there things that like, hey, you have to make sure programs have this in place for accountable to be successful? Or is it just successful no matter what?
I think it can be successful no matter what. I think like we get an opportunity to work with amazing treatment providers, and discharge planners who can do anything and everything. Those are like truly amazing human beings who can, like, within a matter of hours, situate someone and get them kind of, this is where you're going and this is what you're doing and I'm going to contact your family, and that's amazing, and they make our jobs very easy. But, I think the ones who we get to work with the best and really in the benefit of the most benefit of the patient are the ones you communicate. Right, and we have that heavy coordination, right? We're big believers in coordination of care and integrating care. So I would say that's kind of the secret sauce.
Got to have the communication.
Have to.
Yeah.
All right, well, I'm going to give you a chance to break some news here.
Okay, go.
Okay, all right. So we know what your platform is now. We know what the app is now. It's fabulous. What's next? What's going to be the next innovation that you're going to announce today on this podcast?
I don't know about an innovation. I'm a clinician. Matt's the engineer. Okay.
Or why don't you tell us what you'd like it to be?
I think for us, it's making our system as efficient for our staff as possible. For instance, right, documentation is a unbelievably necessary thing in this field, and it's also a very frustrating thing. It takes time, and so like being able to create tools for our staff that minimizes that time suck, for lack of a better term, and helps them to reduce resentment, reduce burnout, right? That's huge. These tools that again really drive efficiency, but really help our staff leave work at work. They're not working past 5 o'clock. We always say this, right? Like when we onboard a new employee, right, which we feel so fortunate that we get to do, we actually, just yesterday had 3 new people start, which is like super cool. We always say like the workday ends at 5. Our goal is to help the individuals that we get to serve, right, build efficacy so that at 9 o'clock at night, right, we're not the bat phone, and we can build them so that they can, have those skills themselves to do that. So any tool and reveal here is that we just want to have a happy staff, and, building any tools to kind of drive that.
Happy staff makes happy clients, right?
That it does.
Well,
we're going to put a big smiling emoji on this episode.
As we were doing some research on the company, looking at your website, I mean, I was shocked that you are very transparent with the pricing.
Yeah.
And I guess what were your thoughts around that, of putting it out there on just for anybody to see?
I think that if we're going to ask so much of this work, right, and clinical, non-clinical, paraclinical, whatever you want to call it, right? We're asking for vulnerability, which is emotional transparency. If we're going to ask for that, we need to do the same thing, right? We're not going to hide behind anything. There's not going to be a gimmick or a hidden fee or anything like that, right? We really wanted it to be priced so that it was low enough that as many people as possible could access it. I know for both Matt and I, when we were getting sober and transitioning out of our care, right, there aren't a ton of options for the masses. The options out of there are amazing, and those who can afford them, I think that is so wonderful, and I'm, have zero feelings about that. But there's a whole lot of people who don't have all that type of access to it. So I guess one reveal I'd say is that we're working on insurance reimbursement, getting a network. That's a big goal. That's a big goal for us.
I was going to go there because I understand that there are some payers that do reimburse for these services, and hopefully there's going to be more. What's the landscape look like from your perspective on that?
I mean, it's hard, and I get it, right? It's peer work is new, but I know there was in 2024, it was just released for principal illness navigation. There are Medicare codes and Medicaid codes, and we're trying to work with that, and really kind of showing the efficacy of peer work as an adjunct to ongoing clinical care.
We had a guest on. It was Joe Lee from Hazelwood.
Sure.
And one of the things that he brought up, which is so refreshing. I mean, we're talking about technology, and we're talking about all these advancements, and we're talking about your platform and all these things. At the end of the day, aren't we really just talking about connection? Aren't we really talking about a community? And so yours is virtual, and this relationship and this peer support. I mean, but isn't it really at the end of the day, we're just expanding the circle of connection?
Sure. Absolutely. I mean, I know it's a little cheesy, I would say, is that like the opposite of addiction is connection, but I think like at its root,
that was a TED Talk, so that wasn't completely cheesy.
And by the way, I agree with it. And I think it's real. And it's addiction in and of itself. It becomes this very isolating experience, right? No one before they go to rehab was surrounded by all of these wonderful people and, doing all these things. I know I was not. I was alone doing these things. Whether it's, AA, NA, any type of mutual aid, right? Having support and human connection is massive. I think whether it's done virtually, which again, I think expands access to that for so many people, whether it's, treatment deserts, what have you, is an amazing thing. Or if it's at your normal brick and mortar and I can, go to an AA church basement and, find connection there.
Yeah.
Do you think the advent of Zoom and FaceTime and all these things that we all, had thrust upon us during COVID, and some of us were doing virtual meetings long before, but do you think that's is it acceptable to the point now where it's just not even a thing anymore?
I think so.
Yeah.
I mean, what a wild time we live in that someone can be 3,000 miles away,
right,
and I can see their face.
Yeah, I mean, do you think that this model would have worked 10 years ago?
No, because I don't think anyone would have accepted it. And I think COVID expedited the exception of it by like the masses and by kind of the treatment world, a la insurances, that like, hey, this is a viable option for a lot of people, right? If I'm a single parent working 2 jobs and I need care, and the only time I can do care is at 10 o'clock at night,
right,
I need that option.
Right.
I need that option for myself, for my stability, for my children, for my job, all of these things. And if my only option is that I have to like leave work to go to IOP, sure, I got to do that, but that's a heavy lift.
Yeah, for sure.
And if there's an option where I can do something semi-asynchronously and still have efficacy to it, that's an amazing thing.
Yeah, for sure.
Well, we love what you're doing with the long-term care and what you're doing after the discharge, and it's great to see the passion of where you came from and why you poured into this. I guess as we start to wrap up the show, is there anything maybe we didn't ask you or that you want to share with the audience?
What happens after discharge? I think that's a really important thing. If we can start to, as a field, as clinicians, as peer supporters, as allies, whomever it is, right, think about what outcomes do look like. And to me, right, it's not a number. These are humans. So like the outcome is more time with family, and you can go to work, and I have insurance, and I can pay bills, and I can have time with my children and my spouse, and all of these things, right, that stability in recovery can give. That's an outcome. Right? I think that utilization rates are fabulous and saving money is truly wonderful. Like, very much am a big fan of that. And I think putting a priority on what the outcome is of like someone's joy. Like, do they get themselves back? Does a family get a brother back, a son back, a spouse back, a cousin back, whatever it is? I think if we can kind of really put a true premium on that, then like we're really going in the right direction.
Yeah, if I'm a founder of a treatment program and I want to take on accountable, like what's the best way to reach out to you guys?
Go to our website. I'll give you my cell phone
Yeah,
number.
we'll drop it all in the show notes too.
Yeah,
we'll drop all your information in the show notes. Is like if we did take it on, how long would it take to integrate into our program?
I mean, the nice thing about having a partner who's an engineer is he's very good at computers. He does make fun of me that I'm not very good at computers, and that's okay. But Yeah, I mean, we have an open API, so we can integrate pretty much if anyone has an API, we can integrate.
Okay.
And so, as fast as they can go is as fast as we can go.
Well, that's great.
Yeah.
Well, yeah, we'll drop all your information in
That
the
would be
show notes,
amazing.
and if anybody has any questions, we'll get
Please.
those over to you too. So,
Yeah.
thanks again for being a part of Mastermind and the community we're trying to build, and appreciate all you're doing for the industry.
Thank
Thanks
you
for
so
being
much.
a part of
Thank
it.
you so much for having me on. It was a pleasure to be here with you both.
Amazing.
Yeah.
Thanks, AJ.
Thank
Great.
you.
Till next week, we'll see you on Mastermind.
That wraps up this episode of Mastermind. Thank you so much for joining us. And remember, Mastermind is not just a podcast, it's a community. So don't forget to comment, subscribe, and review us. Your feedback helps us continue to bring you content that's relevant and relatable. Thanks again to our sponsor, Snapshot, a digital media marketing agency. And thank you for joining us on Mastermind, your behavioral health playbook.